Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will be talking in detail about collaboration governments. We will go through all of the necessary steps required to unlock the collaboration government operation, as well as how and when to make them. Finally, we will try to answer the question, what is best when you capitulate your opponent? A collaboration government puppet, a regular puppet with resource rights and war reparations, or simple annexation? Now, if this sounds interesting, then this is the right video for you. As usual, if you have been following the channel and enjoying my content, please do not forget to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps. Alright, so first of all, let me talk about the necessary steps required to get an agency and to unlock the collaboration government operation. Naturally, if you are only interested in the actual comparison between the three choices, feel free to skip ahead to the dedicated chapter. Now, from the very basics, if you want to create a collaboration government, you will need an intelligence agency. And for this to be available, you need to own the La Resistance DLC. Without that, you will not be able to create an agency. If you own the DLC, you will have a tab up here called Intelligence Agency, and by investing 5 civilian factories for 30 days, you will be able to create an agency. This will be our first step. When your agency is created, you will unlock a spy and you will unlock a series of upgrades and operations. With only one spy, there isn't much that you can do. So you will want to have at least 2 spies, and there are several ways of getting them. You can see it down there. It says that after the first one, other slots will be available after the 5th upgrade or after assigning the elusive gentleman advisor. Actually, you can also get additional spies by becoming a spy master, but you still need some of the upgrades. Now, if you want to go for the 5 upgrades, we will not cover them in today's video, but what I usually do is I take the several departments up here, and then a couple of anti-partisan or passive defense are always solid choices. Eventually, either by upgrading the agency or by picking the elusive gentleman advisor, as we did in this case, you will be able to pick 2 new spies. By the way, the elusive gentleman can be a good solution, however, it is fairly expensive in terms of political power, and usually early in the game it's better to invest in the upgrades rather than spending your political power on the elusive gentleman. You usually have more important things to do with political power early in the game. Now, at this point, you can select your spies. Whenever possible, you should always pick spies with the seducer trait. This is by far the best trait for spies. Now, at this point, we can start using our spies to build an intel network, which will be vital in order to create operations. Now, say that we plan to attack the Soviet Union, and we want to create an intel network. Where do we spy in the Soviet Union? As you can see, we can select several regions. And you have a couple of options here. You can spy in a region that you plan to attack. Say that we plan to go for a naval invasion of Leningrad. We could assign our spies to Leningrad. The advantage of doing that is that when you attack Leningrad with your troops, you will have several bonuses related to the high intel network that you already have in that region. The disadvantage of doing so is that after you conquer the region of Leningrad entirely, you will lose your intel network in the Soviet Union. Another option would be to spy the enemy capital, but this is something I would generally recommend against, because your spies are more likely to get caught if you spy the enemy capital. So what I usually do is I spy somewhere else, somewhere where I do not plan to attack, say for example Vladivostok. And mind that assigning more than one spy to the same region does increase the speed at which you gain intel network, but it has diminishing returns. As you can see, you get only 50% of the bonus here, because there is another spy assigned to the same region. So the first one will give you full intel network, the second one is scaled to 50%. Okay, so at this point we built already quite a lot of intel network in the area of Vladivostok, and we unlocked several operations. There are some interesting ones, but there is no collaboration government, which is today's topic. Why don't we have the collaboration government here? Well, that's because we are a democracy, and unfortunately democracies do not have access to collaboration governments in HOI4. So to fix this problem, we're going to reload my fascist UK run. By the way, this run was a lot of fun, so if you haven't watched my video yet, make sure to do so, because my fascist UK run was absolutely amazing. Now, in this case, we have 3 spies all assigned to Vladivostok, and we built already a 50% strong spy network. And as you can see down here, we have prepare collaboration government. Now, when you prepare it, you need to assign 2 spies to it, and always assign the seducer ones if you have them. And then you can press commence as ready and automatically repeat, because this is an operation that can be repeated up to 3 times. So in this case, we actually made 2 of them already, and this would be the 3rd one. When you do this, I also suggest putting all of your spies on quiet intel network instead of build intel network. in this way you will maintain the 50% Intel network that you have there. They will no longer increase it, but they will keep it as it is. So if you have 3 spies assigned in this way, you can repeat automatically the collaboration government up to 3 times. If you only have 2 spies, you will lose your Intel network while they are working on the collaboration government, and you will need to rebuild it again later on. And by the way, while on a quiet Intel network, your spies will not be caught by the enemy spies. Alright, but what does the collaboration government operation do? It says it increases the collaboration in the Soviet Union by 30%. What does that mean exactly? Now, at this point, we are at war with the Soviet Union, and we already conquered some of their big cities, Leningrad, Moscow, and Stalingrad. But if you played this game and you played against the Soviet Union, you know that that's usually far from being enough. Usually you need to push the Soviet Union all the way to Baku and all the way to Siberia sometimes before they capitulate. So how does the collaboration government help in that regard? Well, let's go up here and check into collaborations and see what's happening here. Now we have this indicator showing the collaboration in the Soviet Union. And at this point we have 2 collaboration governments and we're waiting for the third one. Each operation gives about 30% collaboration, and as you can see we are at 75%, meaning with the next one we will get basically at 100%. This will reduce the surrender level of the Soviet Union by 22%, and it will also give us 75% compliance once they capitulate. And this is absolutely massive, guys. Reducing the surrender level by 22% when fighting someone like the Soviet Union, it's absolutely massive. Plus, with the third collaboration government, we will probably get around 30%. Now, if we look at the war at this point, you can see that the Soviet Union is fairly close to capitulating, but not quite there yet. So we would probably need to get a lot more cities to capitulate them. But in this case, we have our collaboration government coming in about 1 day. And as soon as it is done, we will win the war automatically. Let's see. And we broke the game, which means the war is over. There we go. The Soviet Union is down. So, we got the Soviet Union down much faster thanks to our 3 collaboration governments. Now, we have 2 options in the peace conference. We can annex the Soviet Union entirely, or we can puppet them with resource rights and war reparations. Now, usually what I would do is puppet them with war reparations and resource rights. That's what I would do if I did not have 3 collaboration governments. But with 3 collaboration governments we have another option. If we annex the Soviet Union, which is what we're going to do now, we will get this message. Now this message appears because we have 100% compliance in the Soviet Union. Actually, we would need to have 78% or more compliance for this message to appear. And if you made 3 collaboration governments, it is guaranteed that you get this message. So at this point, we can decide whether to keep the Soviet Union under our control or to create a collaboration government. If you select they have our blessing, you will break the game again. And when the game comes back to life, there will no longer be British Empire in there, but there will be a new puppet. And there we go. Now we have British Russia in here, which is our puppet. Okay, but now the big question, which one is better? Is it better to annex them and keep them under our direct control? Is it better to create this collaboration government puppet? Or is it better to have just a regular puppet with resource rights and war reparations? Now, I explored all 3 options and I took a screenshot of each one after a few weeks just to stabilize the economy, make sure that it registered all factories and so on. So we can now make this comparison in detail. The first screenshot here on the left is a collaboration government puppet. The second screenshot here in the middle is a puppet with resource rights and war reparations. And finally, here on the right, we have annexation. For this comparison, I made a table in which I wrote down the most important stats as well as the advantages and disadvantages of each option. You have access to this table if you purchase the tier 2 membership, but in any case, let's look at it together. For the comparison, I considered manpower, the total amount of factories, and one of the resources. It's basically the same is valid for all resources, so I used steel because it was quite representative. Now let's look at the collaboration government puppet. It gives the most factories and manpower, although to be honest, in terms of factories, they're all pretty similar. There isn't a massive difference. In terms of manpower, the difference between collaboration government and annexation is quite big. Another advantage of collaboration governments is that you get 75% of the civilian and military factories built in it. Now, when you make a puppet and you continue playing, the AI of your puppet will keep investing in it, will keep building civilian and military factories in it, and you will keep getting 75% of them. Another advantage is that it is very easy to annex them later on, should you decide to do so. They start with only 500 points in autonomy, meaning it's very easy to annex them. Another advantage, and this is the same for collaboration government puppets and regular puppets, is that you do not need to defend their land. If you do not call them into your wars, the AI will not attack them, and you can still use them for naval invasions. I mentioned this in several videos, but you can start naval invasions from your puppets even if they are not at war with your opponents. Let's look at some of the disadvantages. Now, it gives the least amount of resources, and this is a quite significant difference. As you can see, it's basically half the amount of resources that you get from the other two options. But you can import them at very convenient rates. You can import up to 80 resources for only one civilian factory. Another disadvantage, of course, is that this requires 3 collaboration government operations. Without 3 collaboration government operations, it's still possible with 2, but very difficult. Now, in conclusion, I would say that whenever possible, it is always the best and safest choice to go for a collaboration government puppet. Let's talk about regular puppets. Now, it gives comparably similar factories and manpower as a collaboration government, and it gives significantly more resources than a collaboration government, although not forever. We'll see it a bit later. It is fairly easy to annex later on. It's only a bit more expensive than a collaboration government puppet. And again, you do not need to defend it, and you can use it for naval invasions. Same thing. Now, while the other two options here rely heavily on compliance, for this one, compliance is completely irrelevant. You will always get the same manpower, factories, and resources regardless of the compliance. A disadvantage, however, is that you only get 25% of the civilian and 65% of the military factories built in it. Another disadvantage is that war reparations and resource rights eventually expire, although they only do so after 5 years, which is usually plenty of time. In my opinion, this is a very close second best choice, especially when you do not have 3 collaboration governments. Finally, let's look at annexation. It gives the highest amount of resources, although that's very similar to Puppet with resource rights. And you do get 100% of the civilian and military factories built in it, but you have to build them yourself. Of course, in this case, you don't have a Puppet, so the AI will not build in it. You need to do it with your own civilian factories. These advantages, there are quite a bit. Well, it takes the most manpower because it's needed for garrisons, so you get the least amount of manpower. And without high compliance, you need to deal with resistance. Of course, in this case, we have high compliance, so the resistance should not be a big problem. And finally, by directly owning the land, you will also need to defend its borders, which can be quite an effort, especially if you consider something like the Soviet Union or other huge countries. In conclusion, I find it very difficult to come up with a reason to annex when you can puppet or make a collaboration government, and I would only do it on land that you can core or for roleplay reasons. Alright, so in conclusion, collaboration governments are amazing. Both the collaboration government operation and the collaboration government puppet are great options to have. The operation is particularly useful when you're fighting big opponents like the Soviet Union, like China, like the United States. Opponents which are usually difficult to capitulate, but thanks to the collaboration governments you can speed up the war significantly. And after you capitulate your opponent, if you have high compliance, I would recommend going for a collaboration government puppet, because as you saw, it gives the best results. Alright guys, so that's all for today's video. If you found it useful, please do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And also let me know in the comments what you think about this topic, or if you have any suggestions. If you notice that I missed something in my comparison, please let me know as well in the comments. Thank you for watching guys, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Bye bye.